Welcome back to NGTV Does City Skylines Tips, featuring your host, Spencer, me. And I'm going to be going over in this particular video zoning. And this is just the basics of zoning, kind of what you need to know in regards to making a city that works. I went over a little bit in the last couple of videos, but basically, when it comes to zoning, you want to make sure, and this is something that people run into, and I ran into a lot when I was making my first couple of cities, which is you have to make sure people can get to the different zones. Even though you don't want residential people next to or directly next to industrial. Industrial provides your people with places to work, so they need to be able to get there. One thing you can do is to fix the traffic, which, I sound like a broken record, but traffic is probably the one, it is like the most important part of the game, making sure you have a city that works. But also just fixing, let me take a look here, just providing other things, other forms of transportation, like our bus lines. In fact, what I'll do is we have our starter city here. I just saved it, so I'll go ahead, go back to our Green Acres playthrough here, which is the one that we're using currently for our playthrough. And we actually have our bus availability. And I'm not going to save it, but I'll kind of show you a little bit. In fact, I actually can't afford it, so I can't build it. So this is actually great. It's perfect because I won't ruin our current save. But creating bus lines, I'll just kind of go over a little bit about it visually here. Throughout the game, you have buses, you're going to have metros, you're going to have trains, you're going to have ships, which is a little bit less when it comes to your internal city stuff, and planes as well. Trains as well, a little bit less with your internal city stuff. But basically, when you're building buses, the most important thing to think about is take a look at this first, and just think about, well, how do I get my workers to the places of work? And vice versa, as well as getting my workers, or maybe tourists even, to the commercial areas and back and forth. Also getting people to maybe an airport or the train station or the docks. Basically think of real life and then apply that to the way you're going to be doing your buses. Don't make the buses too complicated. Don't be going, okay, it's going to have stops all around here. It's going to be one bus. It's going to be so badass. Because then by the time the bus gets back around, he's going to be too late to actually pick people up. So what we want to do is you want to work, especially working with the grids, this helps out a lot. You want to go up and down. Like, this is a bus route, this is a bus route, and you want to have one go in the other option. Because really, it doesn't cost you any more money to make more stops. So you're cheating yourself by not doing that, going back and forth and creating a grid. If you don't want to go too much on that, just if you have problems with getting people to work, like we are right here, which I'm going to eventually in the next episode, I am absolutely building a bus station. Then just worry about, okay, people need to work here, people are here. Move the people through here, maybe at a stop, so that they can get some food along the way, maybe get some groceries on the way back. And then voila, all the people here can now get to here to work. And it's absolutely awesome. And that's the thing you need to worry about. Also, if you're worried about doing mini management, why are you playing a management game? That's all I got to say. Okay, moving back to our other city here. Starter Town, YouTube. Perfect. Okay, so a couple of tips when actually zoning and getting things done is... Oh, a couple more tips, I should say. I can actually leave this going. Is... You don't want your residential right next to your industrial. But something I did learn is you could have a small space and still have your residential. Because if you look at your pollution, and I don't even have access to pollution. Man, we are low. I wish I could go back to the other one now, but I'm not going to do that. So the pollution, as I showed you in the first video, if you watched that one, actually only really resides around the industry. So the only thing you have to worry about is people being kind of unhappy if they're too close to the industry. So that's something to think about. Other things here is you see we have other grayed out zones. You have high-density residential zones as well as high-density commercial zones. But as you notice, you don't really have high-density industrial. But what you do have is you have office zones. Office zones are industrial. Just think of it. Industry and office are the same thing, except office doesn't have any of the drawbacks of pollution. So you can put offices right next to people's houses, especially right next to high-density areas. And then all of a sudden, their job is right next to home. That's amazing. And look, they're even working in an office. So that's even better. But the difference is with offices, you need to have educated workers. So another thing with zoning and getting yourself to better zones and getting yourself to work out better is to definitely pay attention to the levels of your buildings. So if you look at your buildings right here, you have low density residential building, some residents, and your buildings are going to tell you what they want. Right now, it's in the beginning of the game. They don't have a lot of a lot of wants and needs, right? But like things like, okay, this was not operating, which is bad. But eventually, okay, look at this, it's operating normally. But say I didn't have enough workers, it'd be telling me, hey man, I need more workers. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll put some more residential nearby, or maybe I might create a better traffic system to get people there. Or people might be unhappy with their current state of things, or maybe there's not enough educated people. If there's not enough educated people, you need to build more schools nearby. If they're unhappy with the current state of things, you need to build more leisure centers. And leisure centers, let me just take a look here. I'm going to move this down to like 70. We really don't need that much in regards to these. And just to be sure, I'm going to put it down to 70. I'm going to unpause. And I'm going to take a look. We still good, guys. We still good. It's cool. So we're down to 70%, and we're going to be making our money back soon, which is great. Anyways, as I was saying, building education as well as building leisure. And leisure, really, you can build a lot of parks. If people are upset with the current state of things, or they think they're living in low quality, if we want to raise the land value and have higher quality houses, which then increases everything else, then you can just build parks, you can build pathways, basically give people other opportunities and avenues versus just the boring old dull cities. Now, speaking about higher density areas, as per lower density areas, higher density usually equals more traffic because there's more people in the area, as well as more service requirements. So if you have higher density zoning in this particular area, instead of being able to have, like, say, what am I thinking of? An elementary school just right here, and that covers this whole area. Well, if you have higher density, you're going to have an elementary school right here, and because there's more people, your elementary school's range is going to be smaller. It's going to be able to affect less people. So even though it has good access to all the people, it just doesn't have enough room. So you're going to want to have, like, a elementary school right here and elementary school right here, to be able to cover the whole thing. That goes well with trash, as well with incinerators, crematoriums and cemeteries for people. Just basically being able to get people where they need to go, as well as fire departments. If you have a lot of high density, or really just a lot of industry, because those are high risk areas, that's something to worry about with your fire departments. So really, that's most of what I wanted to talk about in regards to zoning. That's the basics. Really, it's just residential, commercial, industry, man. You got residential brings the people. Commercial is what the people buy. Industry is what creates the products for people to buy and also creates the jobs. Also, commercial creates more jobs as well, just not as much as industrial, which is why if you don't want to have so much pollution, you got to go with the office zone, man. Oh, and don't forget, you can just you can dezone things here. Before we go, let me go over the different ways of actually creating zones. So if I wanted to create a zone, say, the super lazy way, and everything's connected right, I can grab the fill, and it just fills in areas. Now, something to think about is it actually has a limit. So you can also kind of, if you have really, really long roads, you can create specific things even with the fill. With the limit, it actually creates more possibilities, which is nice. So you're not filling up an entire like highway with houses. You're only filling it up to a certain point. You have the Marquee Tool, which you can click and drag, and it usually orients to the camera, or you can click inside the square and orients with the actual square that you clicked on. Now, keep in mind, if you have like curved roads, it's going to orient with that as well. So think about that. You have the small brush, which you can get really, really in depth with there if you want to get a little artistic with it. And then you have the larger brush, which is just fuck it, I'm doing this and I'm making that, and it's all going to be filled in. Really, I generally only use the marquee or the fill, and really I only use the fill if I have perfect situations like this, or perfect situations like that's almost a perfect situation. I love that. It's very satisfying for me, especially when I get a whole square. Look at that. That's so awesome. Usually only works for industry when I'm putting a bunch of industry in. I like to do these partials with the Marquee Tool, which is why I use the Marquee Tool the most. But like I've said before so many more times, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button. You want to see more? Subscribe. If you have any tips for the way I'm making the video, you can leave a comment down below. See you guys next time.